Hey there, welcome to the Mental Perk podcast. I'm Karla Hutcherson, licensed professional counselor.
And I'm Brandi, entrepreneur, author, and community leader. And we're here to talk about
real people, real issues, and real talk.
Welcome back to the show. We are so excited. This has been a much anticipated episode that we've been looking forward to. Why? Because we've got some manly men in this room today. Today we've got Trey, Ashcroft, and Anthony, Monnin. Guys, tell us a little bit about yourselves. Welcome to the show.
Trey. You first.
All right. Been in law enforcement for going on 27, 28 years. Almost 18 of us been on SWAT.
Okay.
I am now a mechanical engineer in aviation. I was a former Marine for 6 years of my life. So.
Is that the hoorah?
No. We'll give you that.
Okay.
Hoorah!
You're already starting on.
Even those, we didn't even say anything. It's oorah.
Oh, oorah.
We didn't even say it, though.
Hoorah.
We don't
All
even.
right.
But I did do the right branch, so hoorah is what y'all say, right?
No, you said hoorah.
I did say hoorah.
My heart rate's already up. You're already getting me fired up in here. The watch doesn't lie.
So today's subject is
Toxic masculinity.
Oh, okay.
But
Why are you here today?
Why are we talking about this? That's what's important.
I thought they asked us to come.
No, it's there.
We did. We absolutely
Y'all got to speak up in that microphone that you are sharing in your toxic masculinity.
I'm close to this guy. Bad enough as it is.
Well, isn't that one of the symptoms of toxic masculinity is homophobia?
Oh, it is.
Exactly.
That
Okay.
is.
So we are the poster children for toxic masculinity.
Yes.
Look around us, all around, everywhere we go. I think it's not necessarily the hot topic anymore compared to what it was before, but it is there and it exists.
It does.
And I think society, whether it's social media or even federal government or anything out there, it's starting to see like masculinity is such a negative and bad thing out there. And when you throw the word toxic in front of there, it's like blinking in pink lights right there that this guy who's displaying traits in the masculine sense is absolutely toxic.
Yeah.
And being a masculine man is not toxic. It's absolutely
not.
Something that's been around since the dawn of man and woman. It is a trait that is in our DNA. Well, it's supposed to be.
It was.
I mean, it used to be, but and I think it's an important topic to talk about because I think it's misunderstood. I think that
I agree.
I think masculinity in itself is misunderstood in itself, and what really is important about masculinity versus not having any masculinity. Well, then you throw in toxic in there, and then. All of us are just all weird.
I think it's something the woke made up, and to turn the woke made up just to justify their weakness.
Well, I mean,
seriously, think about it.
yeah.
I mean, you bring up things that they consist of toxic masculinity, whether it be violence for bullying or whatever. We've always had these terms.
Yeah.
You can't lump them all up and just say, well, that's toxic masculinity. No, it's bullying. Okay, no, sexual assault is rape. Okay, that's not toxic masculinity. Those are separate issues. There's problems. Those are crimes.
Those are
And stuff
crimes.
like that, to where you can't sit there and say just because somebody's masculine to the point that it makes them toxic. That to me, I think that everybody's definition is different. Like I was telling somebody earlier, we were brought up in an age where men rode Harleys, we drove hot rod Camaros, and we drank whiskey. All right, now they drink White Claws and ride Vespas. I mean, come on, I'm serious. If you look at it, seriously.
Not that a White Claw is bad for those of you that enjoy them, but yeah.
Nobody's going to rebuild a Tesla in 20 years and restore it. All right, they will a 69 SS Chevelle every day of the week.
Okay, he just brought up a really good point, actually. Yeah. I mean,
Society has changed where that's acceptable.
it has changed. And Karla and I were just talking about this before you guys got here, was like women want to know that they've got a man to take care of them, a man that's going to be, take the drive and kind of like, the men back in the day, they provided for their families. They
protected.
They fixed things. They protected. They were all these things that made a man a man.
Correct.
And now things have changed a lot, like you guys are saying. And it's just different. But I will say, the one thing that cracks me up about Anthony, a.k.a. Anthony, is also Tony.
We're getting brought into this.
He's being brought into it because I can't tell you how many times I've been out with him. And he talks about all these hot women walking in with these men that are just very.
Oh, the trust fund kid. The trust fund generation. Yeah, we got turned in for the trust funds.
Right. Okay. Well, I will say this because I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit. I agree with every word that Mr. Clean over here decided to come out and say.
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean.
See, there's the bullying.
I want to make sure.
I know how you feel. I go through it all the time.
We have
with
a lot
her.
of good listeners, a lot of good viewers out there. You know,
Yeah.
let's make sure I want to call it right down the middle. I agree with every word he's saying because it's absolutely true. I mean, I had a Trans Am and a mullet back in the day, but you know,
The mullet.
and I looked up to the Jean-Claude Van Dammes and the Schwarzeneggers in the '80s. However, okay, so I think when it comes to the term masculine, in a sense, it doesn't mean that I don't want to get on the wrong foot here that you have to be 6'2", you know, jacked and bald-headed, looking like Bruce Willis, like my friend here is right now. You don't have to look like that. That's not what the image part of it is. Just the image itself. But what I think what masculine is that the term "man up" is important here. How often do I come? I live in uptown Dallas, great area. You know, no more crime ridden here the last year. That's great. Good to see that clean up now. I come across so many men who are so ill-informed. They don't even know how to change a tire. They don't know how to get themselves out of a certain circumstance. These were basic principles of things that were just, and I'm using the tire as such a very minuscule little duty or chore.
No, but it's true.
But it's true. And it disappoints because that was something, and I learned from friends growing up. You know, my ma even taught me when I was, later in life. It's something that just seemed like this was important. You need to know things you need to know as a young man.
Those are life skills.
Yeah,
Those
they
are
are.
life
Exactly.
skills.
As a man that we should learn, there, because if
But
I'm
I know
traveling with my girlfriend, which, I don't have, but if I was driving.
Single, ladies,
If
he's
I-
single.
Enough of your little promotions.
He's so single.
All right, if I'm traveling and
Call
and the
us.
tire pops, am I going to say, oh, well, all right, woman, get on out and clip that thing fixed,
Now I got to stick up for the women here. There are a lot of women who can change a tire and they can do it well, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but her
Absolutely.
man better.
But what I'm saying is, I don't think
I just call roadside assistance.
I don't think the strength of a woman needs to decrease the masculinity of a man.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
100% agree with that. Actually, I think women most times in these days are almost get to that point where they're taking over that role amongst a lot of the younger generation of men I'm seeing. out
Yeah.
there. But I don't want to get off the track on here. I think masculine qualities do not entail someone just being physically looking the masculine type. I think there's certain masculine features from a personality standpoint that must be embraced, that must be, brought back into and not looked at as toxic.
Yeah, I think the word toxic, if we're talking about ins and outs for 2025, we need to get rid of the word toxic.
Yeah.
Like, I'm curious, when did it all of a sudden come, in the mix? Does anybody remember that? Like when...
Probably during the Biden administration, I'm just saying.
Well, I don't
Am I
know.
wrong?
I think it's before that.
I don't know. I
Before
think it's
that?
I think it's even before that because I feel like social media has kind of put this play on men against women rather than
I think a good point.
why
Social
can't,
media's a lot.
yeah.
For sure.
And men and women, I think we're getting away from being a team, right? I think it's like we're trying to place one against the other.
There's an I and there's no we together anmore.
There is no I in team.
There's no I
Right
in
there,
team.
big fella.
Right there, big guy.
There's a me.
There's a me. me.
No, you're absolutely right. And I actually, may I actually give the official definition? Of
We would
toxic
love to
do.
hear it. We'd love to hear it.
Because I already have it prepared. All right.
Oh, we have a statement
Oh, we got to pull out the
prepared.
Hey, I brought
cell phone.
Well, it's all right.
I had to use the iPad because I'm blind, but yeah, so.
No, that's all right. They define, I guess AI is the official
I got to see if it
there.
matches mine, too.
According to what they say out there, that toxic masculinity refers to the harmful and exaggerated version of traditional masculine traits like suppressing emotions, prioritizing aggression, and displaying dominance, which can negatively impact men's mental health and relationships, often stemming from societal pressure to, good Lord, this is absurd, to conform to a narrow definition of, quote, manliness.
Wow.
It's absurd, and this is coming from like several different sites. They pretty much say the same darn thing right there.
Well, I printed off, and you're almost to the T. Whatever I just printed was exactly
But I
what
think
you just
we're
read.
letting a certain group of people
Define
in
that.
our nation define what is masculine and what isn't, right?
I think a lot has to do with culture, and like I was talking about earlier, was upbringing. Because if you think about it, we didn't have cell phones that had to tell us where to go, or tell us how to do that, or even look up a definition. I mean,
But are you scared to ask for directions?
No, not at all. If I don't know where the hell I'm at, the first thing I'm going to do is ask, hey, how do I get the hell out of here?
See, that's a man
That's-
to me.
that-
That's a
yes.
real man.
If you don't know, I'm not going to ride around in circles because I'm too, too arrogant to ask. No, okay, so anyway, but I think it has to do with upbringing because we didn't have cell phones. We rode bicycles till the street lights came on. I took welding in shop class. I rode bulls in high school, played football. We did stuff. We went fishing. We went hunting. We did manly stuff because that was fun. That's what you did. You didn't sit there on TikTok for 7 hours a day or play video games with a kid in L.A. or something.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it was a different time back then, and I think that has something to do with it. You had corporal punishments in school. If you were tardy or you messed up, you got licks. You don't have that now.
But I think what we've also gotten into as a culture is being offended.
Yeah.
And I think that being offended is really changed people's ability to deal with things the way you should deal with them, right? I mean, like the term boys will be boys to many is offensive, but there's something to that. Like we shouldn't say that to our boys. Our boys should be able to adapt to whatever they want. But I feel like we're missing out on teaching them certain traits.
Well, they are saying that statistics out there are showing that there are a lot of young kids out there who it doesn't require a father figure to go and teach manly qualities or be a gentleman or anything. But there is startling statistics to say that the man is no longer in the house and that the wife or the mother, will have to embrace that role as well to teach the boys there. And they're saying, I don't know if I agree with it because my mom is strong and she taught me, well to be a young man. I don't know, I screwed up a lot. But, I think there's an interesting fact behind that right there, that they're missing out on that kind of father figure in a sense where they're not catching up on these things and they just, they don't learn them or they don't do it though. But we are a product of our own environment though, and a lot of things I learned aside from my mom was just being with the right group of guys, like guys who were
Exposed
doing
to that.
all those things and exposed to do it and getting and seeing this stuff firsthand. So I would actually love to hear the ladies' opinions on the toxic masculine side here and what it is and what it means to you all. And because, we're over here blabbering like a bunch of idiots. Right? I would love to hear your guys' side of it, though.
No, I think you guys
cross-examine.
No,
right?
I think I think you
Cross-examine.
guys,
We could do that. We
let's
could do that.
I think what you guys said is very true. When you hear toxic masculinity, you think of like it's not exactly how y'all described it. It's when I think about masculinity, I think of exactly what you just said: being able to change a tire, being able to protect your family, playing sports. Doing things that were very, to me, manly. Right? I mean, I'm not saying it's not manly, but I think it's very misunderstood. They automatically think masculinity, men don't cry, men don't ask for directions. That's kind of like when I think of it. When I think of a toxic masculine man, I think of someone that's just a bully. I think of someone that wants to manhandle a woman, and he wants to make her
But there are bully
follow
women
behind
too,
him.
right?
No, there are, but we're talking about men right now.
Yeah.
And
Well, put me in my place. But I'm just trying to point
Brandi
out
can
that
be
is not
pretty
necessarily
bossy.
I'm
that's
a
not
bossy little
necessarily a masculine trait. It doesn't being a bully doesn't make you masculine or toxic masculine.
no, but what I'm saying is, when I'm thinking of a man, I'm thinking of a man. I'm thinking that's what comes to my mind, right? It just, the guys that are toxic, they're the ones that are just, the women fall behind them. It's, that's what I think of. I don't think of when you talk about
toxic
masculinity. It's everything you
masculinity
just
is
said.
disrespectful.
Yeah.
Right? That's when men are being disrespectful to women or disrespectful to each other. So that to me would be toxic.
It gave examples. And one of them was like using violence to push themselves onto people, like a bully.
Oh, yeah.
Forcing somebody to do something, or picking on them using violence.
Yeah.
To me, and like I said earlier, to me, we've had bullying around forever. Ever since there's been a school, there's been bullies.
Right.
And stuff. So to me, I guess you're going to have to say toxic masculinity has been around forever since the dawn of time. You've always had people pick on people. You've always had people be overbearing when it comes to try to force themselves on a woman on a date.
That's what I'm talking about right there.
So that being said, it's been around forever. They've just come up with this term as of lately.
Yeah, I think toxic masculinity is when men just, treat women in a certain way that's degrading, right? That would be toxic. But a man who has masculine qualities is not toxic by any
No.
means.
I think what
I think
they
it's
do
sexy.
is abuse the qualities of masculinity. Like, I don't know. I'll give a movie reference here. Let's think of the movie Back to the Future. Biff. Biff is a definition of toxic masculinity.
Yeah, he is.
I would
actually.
agree.
Yeah.
He's an arrogant, he uses aggression to get his way.
Yes.
He's very forceful on himself to go out there and push himself on, what was Marty's mom. But, it's,
Okay, a lot of people don't even know what he's talking about, right?
But there's a saying that I really embrace, and I think Jordan Peterson put it perfectly as he says, I would rather be the warrior in a garden than be a gardener in war. And I think what he's saying with that, in a sense, is that I am a masculine man, and I have the term control. I'm in control of my aggression. I'm in control of my, being a man's man. I'm in control of all this stuff, but I'm ready, and I'm ready to react when it's the appropriate time. I'm not going to abuse my aggression. I'm not going to go out there and forcefully use these qualities, which are imperative to becoming a man in these days, or even obviously in the past or in these days. But you're in control of those amazing qualities.
I love that word, in control. I like that
too.
because
Yes.
you're saying,
the difference.
yeah,
There's the difference,
there's a
right?
big
There's
difference.
the difference between
100%.
being masculine and being toxic masculine.
Yes.
That is the key, is control.
And misusing those traits is what's toxic as well.
There's no place in our society for somebody to commit murder or rape or ag robbery, and those are all, to me, those are extreme cases
Aggressions.
of aggression and violence.
Yeah.
Where I think the term has been broadened too much. Does that make sense? Where we use it in examples that it doesn't really meet that criteria, where other things obviously that are that bad do.
Well, that's why we have you here today, because we're able to, honestly, when you think about it, it is a broad term, right? And so when you guys are able to break it down like this, honestly, some of the stuff you're saying, you never think about it until you're actually having to talk about it. And I'm like, wow, that does define it in a good way to where it's not so massive.
Yeah,
right?
and back to our movie theory here, George McFly goes in there and shows the right type of masculinity. He steps up to the plate and knocks Biff, the bully, out there, and it saves the day. Controlled aggression to go out there and be a man's man.
Yeah.
And it's in that case. Back to where I live in Uptown. I see this happen all the time where people are, guys are walking by, and there was a guy who was smacking his girl in a truck on the side of the road.
Oh, no.
And there was just guys just walking by, watching the whole thing goes down, until I went up there and interacted and opened the door and didn't say, hey, you get your damn hands up. No, I didn't pull the thing. I went in there and acted appropriately and got it all taken care of. But
what did you do?
Thank you for stepping in. I
would like to know
that is
how did you handle
masculinity.
it?
As you're an attorney, I would definitely not answer this.
But that's an example of being masculine to me.
It's controlled, and there's a time and a place to where you are to take those imperative qualities that you have there and go out there and use them for good and use them for,
Well, let me ask you a question, though, in that situation, which I'm going to break it down even further. Do you think maybe people didn't step up and say something because they're afraid that if you did, he would take it out on the woman even more after the fact?
I just think that they're weak and afraid.
Weak-minded.
They're weak and afraid. I always say they're more concerned about their own 3-foot world. It's not their business. It's not their place to go in there and act. And technically, more or less, they're scared.
Yeah.
They don't,
have no confidence in their
no.
abilities.
If anything, just knock on the window and say, "Hey,
I see you, dude.
see what's going on. What's up? This isn't right."
Yeah.
And then it probably is going to. Who knows if it'll escalate or not from then on?
Yeah.
But at least maybe she gets a split second to open that door and get away.
Yeah.
And that's literally, as soon as I knocked on that window and opened that door, she did. She got out of that lid and got the heck out of Dodge and went down the block. You know.
But that's what we're talking about, protection, right? How would that have been different had a woman gone and opened the door? Would it have been different? I don't know.
If it's Ronda Rousey, I'd like to have seen that. It's pretty good.
But I think Brandi would do it. I think she would go.
Would do it. I'd pull you out. Don't ever. Now, Karla, I think she would, but she'd need the example like me to do it first. And then she'd be like, all right, I can do this. But no, Karla's more of the processor. I'm more of I'm going to get in there and take care of business, and you don't do that to a woman. Like, period. at
I
all.
agree with that.
I
Yeah.
agree.
But I
I
see
mean,
it even in
Brandy's kind of
recruits
masculine in a way.
all the time. That they're a lot more these days. Seem like they're a lot more of them. Like when I got into this a long time ago, man, it was a completely different mindset. Where you had a lot of people that if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly bear mentality. To where now it seems like more and more they're. I mean, I'm not going to call them weak. I'm going to call them timid.
Yeah.
They didn't fight, never get that. I mean, some of them, before they hit our academy, they've never even been in a fight before in their life, not even in school. I'm like, I mean, and then when you try to teach them defensive tactics, stuff like that, they're getting their ass handed to them. I mean, some of them show up, especially with jiu-jitsu and stuff like that on the rise, to where we have some people show up that have been putting in the work and stuff like that, but a lot of them, it seems like now, I mean, to where they're real timid, and they've never really been in an altercation before. So if they don't have that confidence in their abilities, and they are naturally timid and scared, they're not going to act.
Well, and I think that goes back to culture changing, because back in the day, your mom and dad, or your dad would have told you, if you got in a fight, you better finish it, son. You better go home and finish it, or else I'm going to make it worse for you myself, right?
Wow,
And I think you've seen things shift to where now it's like, violence is not the answer. And, so I think that's where you're seeing that shift. And that shift probably started in the 2000s, I'd say.
Yeah.
About the same time they took corporal punishment out.
Exactly. I mean, you took all the stuff out that was literally kind of the guide for you guys to be the manly men, right?
Yeah.
Parents are getting lawyers out and suing the parents,
Right.
the kid's parents for beating up their,
Well-
for defending himself even in cases, for him getting picked on, and then he ends up beating them down. Then they sue him for everything else. It's a little out of control right
Well,
now.
and that's where you get all the shifts, though, right?
Well, I think we're coming to that where we can't be offended, we can't be uncomfortable, we can't have fear. I mean, we're only supposed to be filled with good emotions, but the fact is, we learn from all of these experiences, such as kids who are playing, t-ball and little league. We get to the point where we're not keeping score,
Yeah.
or everybody gets a
Everybody gets
trophy.
an award.
Yeah, because it doesn't teach people to work hard and have those
I don't even want to play
values.
if I'm not going to win. Like,
You're absolutely right, though. Everybody's so easily offended. Could you imagine them watching the Jeffersons or All in the Family now?
Oh my gosh, yeah, that would be
yeah.
hilarious.
No.
Married with children.
Married with
I know,
children.
Married with
yeah.
children,
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Everybody is so super sensitive now, and that we have to be so politically correct. We have to have no gender biased bathrooms. I mean, to me, that's just ridiculous.
And we can't laugh at ourselves anymore. Like, Tony, you're a comedian as well. You do some comedy, right?
Oh, here we go. Man,
But
you're
I'm just saying-
throwing you under the bus today.
So, comedians they've been canceled
This is the
for
hardest
saying things.
job. Well,
Yeah.
now it's starting. You're
starting to see it come
you're starting
back,
to see it
but-
come back. Like during the COVID times, or before that, or a little bit of that, I couldn't imagine being like a writer, to sit there and write these jokes out and these skits out for these comedians, because there's only so much they can say.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, there's heat on them for making fun of this person or whatever. When you look at our generation, everybody made fun of everyone, and everything was.
And you make fun of each
Cancel
other's
culture ruined
differences,
a lot
and,
of
and
Yeah,
you don't
they
worry
have.
about that. But I think we get out of just, we can poke jokes at each other's
Oh, no,
differences.
no. You're seeing a lot of comedians now feed off the crowds, and they're making fun of themselves. They're making fun of the people that are in the audience. And Rife is one of them. Matt Rife is one I think of. He is a hoot. And he does that.
He's
and
funny.
he's funny, and he can be offensive, but it's a comedy show. It's
Right.
not
It's-
supposed to be
it's supposed to
serious.
be
It's
that
supposed
way.
to be funny. And if you're that kind of person, I've literally seen people walk out of a show because they're offended. I'm like, it's comedy. Don't go.
I think
Yeah.
Richard Pryor pretty much broke the mold of
Eddie Murphy?
And Eddie
Oh,
Murphy.
oh,
Yeah.
Those guys.
They
to
did.
me,
Who was the other one I went and saw?
John, or is it Carlton?
Ron White's who I would like.
Ron White, but no, who was the one? And I went and saw him, y'all, and I was shocked. I did walk out because I didn't know. My dad said he loved him. And of course, I should have known because my dad's kind of got that sick sense of humor. And it'll come to me. But he was the foulest person I'd ever heard in comedy.
Really? Worse than Richard Pryor or Eddie Murphy?
Worse.
Really?
What was his
That's kinda
name?
hard
I'll
one to
come
pull
to
off.
it. I'll come to it. I've gone blank, but
Yeah, it'll come back to you.
it'll come back to me after the show.
Interesting question for you.
Sure.
Do you see in society today, and I'm sticking to the masculinity side of things, we've obviously started to see, in my opinion, we've started to see a decline when it comes to, because there are guys out there, one who never knew it, but they're also maybe they're too afraid to be masculine. Or maybe this is just the acceptance and the norm now in society that, well, it's not cool. It's not good to be a masculine man when everything's on my phone and everything's right here. I don't have to do whatever it is. These traits are just pretty much extinct. Do you think do you starting to see that trend continue to go down? And if you do, how the hell do we bring it back up? You know, I mean, what do we do? You know, because it is scary, you know, and it all starts for me. I think it all obviously starts with parenting. You know, good parenting is important in a sense, but you've got so many different angles now than we did as kids. This phone and these social media outlets, these things, you know, podcasts as well and things like that. They have such a major influence when it's on to you, and it's right on your fingertips, 24/7 coming at you. Do you see masculinity? You know, I mean, do you see it coming down to, you know, even further down, or do you see it?
I don't know that we need to
Or
get rid of masculinity, but I think we have to acknowledge things that maybe people didn't acknowledge before. So we might can learn something from it, such as, you know, emotions aren't unmasculine, right? So can we be able to talk about those things? Can we be supportive of those things? I think you just have to realize that it may not look like it did back when we were growing up. It may look different, but it doesn't change the aspect of we need masculine men, right? We still need people with those traits. And so it's very important. I mean, I don't know that we could have a society without them.
No, I agree. I mean, if you look at too, I think a lot of it comes from leadership. I mean, and just for me, I'm not here about politics, but if you look at just the change in our country, just in the last week or since the election and just since the inauguration, I mean, when he took over the military and he appointed Pete Hex as Secretary of Defense, they said that the recruiting and the enlisting in the military jumped 184%.
Wow.
Across the board. I mean, with all of them combined.
People craving that leadership.
Yes, and I think because if you think about it, it starts at the top.
Yeah.
And then I think kind of sometimes it'll filter down.
Yeah.
So I mean,
From a law enforcement standpoint too, I would imagine.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean, because here's the thing: we got a lot of laterals that transferred in from states that under previous administrations was doing away with qualified immunity and stuff like that. Which, if you don't know what that is,
Like
that's
California, right? Was
California,
one of them.
New York.
Yep.
We got a lot of people from up north came in and transferred down here, moved their whole family and everything to come to work in Texas. Plus, there's no state income tax here. But for the main part, Texas is a majority, Republican state, except for a couple of, places. But for the most part, to where they don't want to be up there with that. They don't want to be up there with that mentality where they're hated. And then not to mention can get sued for anything. You take away qualified immunity because that says where you can't be sued if you act within the guidelines of state law, federal law, and your general orders, and you reacted properly, then you can't be sued. Well, if you do away with qualified immunity, especially Colorado, I mean, we got several states. We had a lot of laterals come there. So it does come from leadership to where people aren't going to want to, they're not going to want to work and be a police officer there.
Yeah.
And when you have somebody come in an administration that will support law enforcement, that is not going to tolerate that,
Yeah.
they're going to get rid of as much of the violent criminal element as they can, right off the bat, day one. I think that filters down, and people see, especially when it's gone so far out of bounds that people don't want to act. They don't want to do this line of work and stuff like that, to where you start to see the pendulum swing back now, I think, a little bit the other way.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that what he's talking about, the scale is maybe leveled out, is maybe going to pick back up just a little bit.
I think it's picking back up, but we still have to focus on the change. Like if we look at men as caretakers, back in the days of the 1940s and 50s, men didn't take care of children or be caretakers in any way. But now you see like The Rock. I mean, he has videos out. He's putting pigtails in his daughter's hair and singing Baby Shark. I mean, but he exudes masculinity. So being able to maybe adapt and realize
it doesn't make you less masculine.
Yeah.
If you're doing the thing. And I think that's where people don't understand when we're sitting here talking about what we're talking about. It's not, it's very defined, right? Whereas to everything that we put in this, just the name itself, it's so broad, but when you break it down and you start talking like we're talking right here, The Rock, doing his daughter's hair, but he's still a man. He's a man's man, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's where we've got to start.
and there's nothing
educating
sexier
people.
than that, right? And that's great.
I think that's where you start
Yeah.
educating the younger men. Is going. It's okay to do all these things, but
you don't have
it's
to be
also
soft. You can still be
a man.
Yeah.
And I think I love it too. I think there's still a lot of that out there. I just think that some of it's not posted, where you see every move that every actor makes or anybody with any influence that has a Instagram page or Facebook, to where they plaster everybody plasters everything. Now, the ones that are private for just friends and family are one thing, but when you have the actors and you have other people that are famous and they're trying to sell their own brand, They're going to put anything and everything about themselves, even if it's true or not. They're not ever going to tell you, hey, I'm having a bad day, my wife left me. They're not going to put that on social media. Hey, I'm doing great.
Yeah.
I'm at the bar having drinks with my buddies.
Yeah.
They're not going to post that. So you're not going to, when we see more now than we've ever seen in the past, like when we were growing up, you didn't have social media. You know, your parents would raise you a certain way, and then that's how you were brought up. And nobody else saw that, you know, or nobody saw, you know, if you had a daughter, you know, having tea with her and while she's a young kid or something like that. You just did that because you were a parent and you love your kids.
Exactly.
That's a good point.
That is a great point.
Everybody puts everything out there for everybody to see.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I think
It
social media's
existed.
had-
You're saying it existed before,
Yes.
but social media has just amplified it to where
Absolutely.
it's there,
Yes.
But
which
I think
I'd love.
the
That's a great
parent-
point.
Yeah.
It is because, you know, we didn't have that growing up. I mean, my dad and my grandfather, you know, taught me how to shoot, took me hunting when I was a kid.
Yeah.
You know, there's things like that, but now you'll see it to where there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody wants to share their lives and stuff, and that's fine. But to me, though, I just think you see a lot more of it now, but it also has a flip side of the coin where you'll also see the negative to where you'll have people that will have a negative influence, like using toxic masculinity, you know, for every little thing when it doesn't apply. I mean, to use a movie line, the program, you know, James Conn is the coach. He goes, trying to help this one kid out. When's the last time you saw 50,000 people show up for a science experiment? They don't. They show up to watch a football game.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
It's not toxic masculinity. It's the truth. You may not like it. It may offend you if you're a science nerd, but it's the truth. I mean, but seriously,
That's true.
If you look
But
at it,
I
we
think
can't use that term so broadly that it covers everything.
Yeah.
There is a misconception that if we really honor masculinity, we're somehow putting women down, and I don't think that's accurate, right? Because I don't think it means we need to degrade women if we're promoting masculinity.
It just needs to be the proper way. And I think, like I said, I think the term's been used.
It's so abused. The word is so abused.
And it's, instead of being just specific instances, they've taken instead of a small paintbrush, they've taken a roller and just and made a broad brush stroke and tried to throw everything in just to cover it up, or to cover so many different examples of it. And I don't think that's accurate.
And I think there's also an idea that we can make men and women equal. Well, they're always going to be different.
Different, yeah.
There's no way to make them the same.
I don't want to be equal.
Right? And when I say equal, I'm not talking about in value. I'm talking about, you know, we're not going to do things the same. We're not going to look at things the same. We're not going to feel the same about things. But somehow we've had this misconception that we need to do things or be the same. And that would be just a really ugly world, I think.
Well, it's not just that, though. Just certain things like we can't bear children. I don't care how you identify yourself.
And you could not bear a child.
No politics here on the Mental
But it's the truth. Sorry. You don't have the equipment to have a kid.
Yeah.
Just
No,
saying.
but it's true, though. It's very true.
nothing-
And
it's a
the
fact.
flip side of things, I really don't think, and nothing against you men, that's one thing I'm proud of as a woman. I can bear a child and you can't because I know.
offended.
You're going to suck it up, big boy.
Yeah, big glasses, suck it up.
But, you know, it's one of those things, though, where, like, that's one thing that I know you guys can never do. And I know you probably couldn't handle the pain of that. But then I couldn't
I
handle
heard
the
it's
pain.
just like going to the bathroom.
I
right? Is that
couldn't
what you
handle the
heard?
pain of certain things that you guys do, right?
Well, I mean, how many roughnecks you've seen that are female working an oil rig? I mean, how many, though? Think about it.
You don't.
But we'll honor the few that are out there.
Man,
How
I'm
about
telling
that?
you, that's a woman right
Yeah,
there.
no, true, but I've seen, this is no joke, and I used to have this view of women in combat back in, 2004.
They shouldn't be in combat, right? Was that your mentality?
Absolutely, because it was just that. But then one day when we had this reserve unit attached to us out in Route Irish, which was a very dangerous route to drive in Iraq, and we had 3 other Humvees that were with these National Guard units that came from Kentucky. And we got ambushed, of course. We knew it was coming. And we go out and get ready. And the guy who was on the 50 was supposed to provide down a beat of fire. Well, he panicked. He jumped off the Humvee and crawled behind the engine block and just held in. Well, this woman jumped up to the plate and got into the Humvee, crawled up, racked that thing, laid a bead of fire for us, and we went in and took care of the objective. And once we were done, I came back and gave her a fist pump, and I told her face to face, I was like, you just showed me something I didn't think I'd ever see before, and I appreciate, And then, of course, I won't go into detail what I said to those men or whatever, though, but it was an impressive, it was actually there, Now, she did what she had to do on that there. They still need to meet the standard from a special operations standpoint or for something like that.
The
You wanna
physical
do it,
strength,
go
yeah.
and do it.
Yes.
But you meet the standards set
Same.
there.
No, I
Yeah.
agree.
And that woman on that day, she told me she qualified for that 8 years ago to shoot that. They wouldn't let her shoot the gun.
Wow.
They wouldn't let her on that. And I'm not going to lie, during the op order, I was glad to see a man on top of that 50 cal versus her. I didn't even want her there, but she was there. I was completely just
Blown away.
blown away. And then, you know, and I've seen other women do the opposite, but I've also seen men do the opposite, just like those guys did on there. And they got behind and threw their rifles down and I didn't sign up for it, whatever. But that woman, she blacked that thing and sat there and gave us a bead of fire for us to go up there and get the job done right there. So, you know,
That's amazing, though.
You know, so I have, hey, go woman.
But that goes back to mentality too, though. Let's talk about this. Let's go back to mentality. That was probably how y'all were raised. You were raised to think women couldn't do certain things men can do. And, I mean, we really did. We really were raised in a time when we didn't think a woman could do what a man could do. And there's women firemen now. Back in the day, you didn't have a lot of women firemen, right? You didn't have a lot of women officers, did
My mom
you?
was the first one in 40.
See, I remember you telling me about that. And then she became a
It does
judge.
happen.
Yeah, so
But
I
that's
mean,
progress,
very
and that's
proud
where I
of her.
think
She's a great
change is important, right?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
change
it
is important in those areas.
As long as the standard is the standard.
I believe in the
and
standard.
make
You
it-
shouldn't lower a standard at
If
all.
that woman can go in there and go through selection like the rest of us would have to in 6 months or whatever it is. If she passes it all, like we give her the pin and let her go out there and operate and let her do her thing. you
Yeah.
know?
I agree with 100%. If you can meet the standard.
If you meet the standard.
let's talk about, though, when a woman can do something just as good as a man. Is that intimidating to you guys ever? Or are you impressed?
Very
impressed.
impressed.
Okay.
Especially
Maybe
in the
been
world
turned on. I
Do you
don't
think
know.
that's
Turned on. I mean, especially in the
Do you think
world
that's
that we
changed a
operate.
lot, though? Because I don't. Were you back in
Yeah.
the day? Do you think men still felt that way, or do you think men were like, "No, you're not capable"?
Today or then?
And I think that's where I want to go back. Back in the day, that mindset, and now, because back in the day, would you have admitted that you'd have been impressed if a woman could do something just as good as a guy?
I'll be
or
honest
was
with
it
you.
the?
I had a life-changing deal when I was a teenager when my parents got divorced, when my mom did become a police officer. So to me, I wasn't brought up like that. I mean, maybe as a young kid, maybe. I don't know. But when I was a teenager, 14, 15 years old, I saw her put on a gun belt and no vest back in those days and go to
No
work.
vest, yeah.
No vest and stuff and going, we're working Oak Cliff doing security. So to me, no, I think as a young man, that if you can, like he said, if you can do it, then go out there and do it. And so
But would you agree some men nowadays still are
Oh,
intimidated by a
absolutely.
woman
No,
being able to
absolutely.
do?
sexism still exists.
I think though that they would change. I think too on some of those because there's some vets out there that still have a big issue with women in combat and everything. But I think they're more upset with the fact that the standard may have been lowered to some of these.
And it was. And it
lowered.
was.
I mean, there's someone who went through Ranger selection or RST or RASP or whatever they call it, and they got their Ranger tabs, and they had to go through a different set of standards
Yeah.
that wasn't set amongst the other candidates.
I'm not
And-
okay with that.
And that I would be pissed about too, and I am
Right.
pissed about
Yeah.
it. They don't rate that,
Yeah.
But
if
those
they
sta-
meet the standard,
the standards are set for a reason because you need to make sure you can do the job, right?
there's grown men who's been tapping out or ringing out or doing everything for several decades on these types of things. It's not for everybody. But if a woman who's determined, and again, I hate doing movie quotes, but G.I. Jane, that young woman went through, selection in there and got it done. Hey, she went through and didn't even accept the bullshit standards as she went to the actual standards. If they can do it and they can finish up and do what the rest of the guys, then give her the job. Give her the job.
100%.
In fact, I wouldn't want the job if I couldn't meet the standard.
because you're putting people in danger. You're putting people in danger.
Like-
I'll put it to you this way: for like our tryout process for SWAT, there is no different standard for females.
Good.
And we've
there
only
shouldn't
had,
be.
I think, 3 tryout period ever, maybe 2, I think, and didn't make it on the tryout process because not to mention the in-doc week or hell week, we call it, whatever, is the tryout is nowhere indicative of what you have to endure that week for your opening week. But that being said, I know Dallas has had a female, and she's a freaking, I'm not going to say her name without her permission, but she was a freaking stud. I mean,
We love
she
them
was
studly
collegiate.
women, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, she was collegiate athlete. I mean, you name it. I mean, she smoked it. I mean,
Yeah.
did great.
Yeah.
And I've seen a couple other females. You don't see many of them.
Yeah.
But I don't know what other agency standards are as compared to ours. But I mean, I'm sure some of them they have to pay dearly to be there. But I've heard. I mean, I've actually shot with her and stuff. And I mean, and she squared away. So
Yeah.
That being said, there are some out there, but like he said, there is no different standard for us between men and women. If you cannot meet this standard, then you are not accepted.
There shouldn't be.
And I agree with
Absolutely shouldn't be. Okay, so we're going to go through, I want to go through some playful
Yes,
questions. Do you think America got softer when we started making entire holidays about feelings like Valentine's Day?
First off, Valentine's Day is a bullshit holiday. That's all I'm going to say.
I have to say, I agree with that.
Take my money
I don't.
away.
I'm not a
That's all
Valentine's
it's
Day
about.
girl
It's about
either.
making money to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you're not telling your partner that you love them every day, there's something wrong with you.
I agree.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I always said when my like, do you want flowers around the year, or do you want it really from
I
just
want
the
it-
14th?
I want
when
it randomly.
It's mandatory.
No,
Yes.
I want it,
Okay.
I want it
Random.
randomly.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think it says
And I
you
want to
thought
know
about
that.
me
I
on
want
a
to know
day
you
that's
think
not
about
required.
me when just randomly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I want you to send me flowers
Yeah.
just because you
know
thought,
what it
God, I
is?
love that woman.
Hallmark and all them other assholes out there are marketing this thing like no tomorrow. And then when the young lady goes to work and looks around the office with all the balloons and all the bullshit,
And no one gets anything?
Why ain't my man thinking of me today, right now? Because I've done it throughout the entire year.
Well, you know,
It's still not going to let you off on the 14th, though.
but you know what? I
What's the question
I don't
again?
expect anything like that though. That's a good thing. Which
Direction count? Oh, I'm sorry. That's the
you're
wrong
cheating. You're cheating. If being nice and empathetic makes people think you're soft, does that make Mr. Rogers the OG rebel?
one. You know, Mr. Rogers was
He
a
was
scout
manly.
sniper in the Marine Corps.
Yeah,
Well,
he was
I know.
manly.
Yeah.
Would you have thought that though?
No, he covered his tattoos up on his sleeves.
Do you think he was manly then?
Absolutely. He's a Vietnam vet.
But before that,
But
before you knew he was a Vietnam vet, would you have said that? That's a good question, right?
It's a fair question.
Very
and
fair.
I don't and that's why I was saying earlier about when it comes to appearance. You don't
Yeah.
have to be 6'2" and jacked with bald head, Bruce
Yeah.
Willis looking guy like this guy is back here or
knew that
anything.
was coming.
It is not an appearance thing. No, I would not have saying that, but I'll give everybody the benefit of the doubt until he tells me I want avocado toast over bacon. then we're in trouble.
Then we're
What if
in
he says, I
trouble.
want avocado toast with bacon. Does that make
No,
him
I hate
manlier than a
avocados.
man?
Man up and bacon in. All right, ask Clint Eastwood if he was sitting here right now. Do you think he would say? Oh yeah.
What do you think
give me-
Chuck Norris would say?
What do you think he would say? He would ask bacon. That guy's immortal. He is the man.
Yes.
He's an avocado guy, I think.
I think he likes avocados. I
think he does.
I think he
I
does.
absolutely
Chuck Norris, if you're watching this,
Please
right,
tell us,
in front of
Chuck.
this,
Please
I
dial in.
Bacon or avocado?
better
Chuck,
say
tell us.
Bacon, or I'm going to be really
But
mad
what's
about
wrong
it.
with both?
What's wrong with both guys? We got some. They got really quiet quick when you asked
I
that question.
know.
Well, that's your preference, I guess. But to me, I can't stand avocados, so I don't eat avocado
Does
toast.
food really make somebody manly, though?
I don't
You
know.
eat, no.
Steak? I don't know.
I mean,
Well, y'all are
does
promoting
it have a
big
high degree of protein? Because that's good for me.
That's good for me too. What's good for
I'm
you
not
is good for
taking over
me.
bacon.
Okay.
All right.
Let's see. What is the real threat here? Men hugging each other or not being able to use power tools without Googling it first?
Where do y'all come up with these questions?
This is Brandi. This is all Brandi. I don't claim.
Okay, when I walked in,
You hugged him. You hugged.
did
You
the bro,
embraced.
like, the predator handshake.
And then you pulled it in.
predator
You brought it
handshake.
That's
in.
right, and then we embraced
chest
each other
pump.
like the brotherhood, so
Yeah.
that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But if you have to Google how to use a man tool, a power tool.
Okay, I'd rather see some actual guy actually with a power tool in his hand versus one who doesn't want to do anything, has to call every single thing. There's nothing wrong with Googling something to learn that you may not have been
For sure,
taught.
I agree.
So I think that's fine and dandy.
See, I think this is modern masculinity over
too.
here. I love that.
Personally,
you
prefer
better know it before.
to go to
that's what you
YouTube to see a hot chick in a bikini demonstrate how to use it.
Oh, I was going to say, there's some women out there who can use some power tools.
should. You remember what was it, Home Improvement?
Yeah. Oh, Heidi.
bells?
Oh yeah,
Heidi was
Heidi,
something
Heidi.
special.
definitely.
Something special.
She's a woman's man.
That was Pamela Anderson.
A man's woman.
Yeah, man's
woman.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
Pamela Anderson, yeah.
Oh yeah. Even at this day, she still has that sexy, trashy look about her.
Does she?
Oh yeah,
Sexy, trashy look.
yeah.
What's the next question?
I don't know that I have many more.
You got like 10 on there.
I
man.
know,
Come on.
but some
Why
of
are you
these
skipping them?
Because what's scary to you? American being, I can't say that word.
No, wait a minute. You were printed.
Seven.
Since
Number
I
7.
can read it, you
Yeah.
don't have to. This is your
Yeah.
show.
We ought to take turns asking
What
each
is it
other.
with you saying this? You'll say it 10 times the night after having it. All right, hold on. What's scary to you? America being pussified or being asked to have a serious talk about your feelings?
I'm more scared about America being pussified. our country going down the shitter? I'm more concerned about that.
You are a mental health, mental perk, professionals as you are. You know darn well that men are not very good about opening our feelings.
They're not.
There are a lot of women who aren't good at opening their feelings.
Right.
It's not just a man trait.
I'm kind of that way.
You don't open up to your husbands at all?
Oh, I do. I didn't say I had, but I said there are a lot of women who do have trouble talking about their emotions. Yeah.
I'm going to read the rest of these so you don't
Okay,
have
you go
to.
ahead.
Right?
Yeah,
They're all clean.
They're all clean.
Boy, you got like 5.
Feelings
No,
are
it's
not
just
gender
that. That's
specific.
All right, it says here, if embracing emotions makes men better at relationships, does that mean we're leveling up or just ruining the stereotype?
It's a complicated
You
question.
can do both. I think you can still be a manly man and still be able to have a
Absolutely.
conversation.
I love that. That's a great answer. Most men need to hear that, though.
Thank you.
Men need to hear that.
Dude, that's the
second
second home run.
that. It is, man. The panel have any other questions for?
But do you have any other questions?
Do I have any other questions? I
Or
think we've had
thoughts?
some really good discussions. Do y'all have questions for us?
women.
Well,
I got one.
Go ahead. Yeah.
All right. What about toxic feminism?
I believe
Feminism?
in that too.
Yeah.
I believe
Can
that's
you,
a
can you, in
thing.
your words, describe what that is?
I think it's a woman not needing
so.
a man.
Yeah, it's where she's so feminine that she's anti-man.
Yeah. I think
I think that is
Feminist,
anti-men.
Obviously, yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, to get to the point where it's toxic. I mean, just because you're feminine, there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. I mean,
But when everything
But I
is,
think
I
when
don't
we're
need,
man
I don't
hating,
need,
I
don't
think
need.
that's toxic
I do
femininity.
too, yeah.
Man hating, because we shouldn't man hate,
No.
and there's no reason for
You
it.
serve a great purpose.
But yes, I feel when we get
Thanks.
yeah.
I feel like extreme thinking is the problem. When
Yeah.
we get to an extreme to where we have to hate the other sex to be comfortable in ourselves, I think that's
or when
bad.
a woman has to feel like she has to prove herself, like
Yeah.
she has
So
to.
I would say that basically you have a coin here. It's a toxic coin. On one side of it, you have masculinity, and the other side you have feminism. It's the same thing.
It is.
Just applied differently, because when it's masculinity, it's towards us. When it's toxic feminism, it's towards y'all.
Yeah, that's true.
So there you go.
But I will say, like, I think women too, and you and I have had this discussion many times, Tony, is when you see men like you, and this is my standpoint,
What the hell do you mean, man? Like me?
Like you people.
you boys, you guys, no, they're in shape. They are manly looking men. I think a lot of women nowadays are very intimidated by that.
On behalf of the Italian people, I'll apologize because of the Jersey Shore pretty much ruined that for all of us out there, though. So, no, I think they are. You are right.
It's
They
a good
are-
point, right?
It's a very good point. It definitely has made a shift where it's not. It is kind of frowned upon right now. It's not attractive. It's not desired, or even it is. It's almost like they already created the beginning, middle, and end to that type of person by stereotyping them, and it's not what is the thing out there.
No, because and women out there, if you're listening over here, he shakes his head. Just because we love him so much, right? If I was to see a Tony out there, I would absolutely think he's non-approachable. I would think that you have a certain genre of woman that you're interested in. And this is horrible, I'm saying this, but I think a lot of women think like this. Even looking at you, you see a man that's in shape, good-looking men, and women just automatically feel like they don't feel like they're good enough to be with you.
Well, that's where the aggressive nature as man to man up and go up and say, "Hello, how are you?"
Hello.
See, I'm going to give another approach to that because I'm big into weightlifting. That's what I do,
Yeah, you are.
5 days a week. I'm in a very professional weightlifting gym where there's men like you all over the place. And they're the nicest, sweetest
are.
guys. I mean, I don't have that vision does not make me intimidated.
But I think a
because
lot
you
of
do the
women
same
are.
thing, though.
Right.
You're confident in yourself because you go put in the work and
Yes.
you do that.
I'm
And-
not
Yes.
a bodybuilder.
And so,
I'm a pickleball player.
okay.
So-
now that right
so-
there is probably one of the pussifications of sports. Right there.
I play with a lot of manly men
I'm kidding. I'm
in
just
pickleball.
kidding.
No, I know you are. I know you are. But there you go again. That's a great point. What you just said is there's this label put on people.
Yeah.
And we think that they're less than if they do a certain thing, and that's just not the case.
Can't judge a book by its cover.
You can't.
I think that's another
Mr.
home run
Rogers.
right there because you can't judge a book by its cover.
Mr. Rogers.
Prime example.
Yeah.
Anthony Monnin.
And I think our society right now is trying to equalize everybody. And I think, why don't we just embrace the differences?
Yeah.
Why don't we embrace and see what value they have?
They're too busy with this and what's going on.
That
and
has really
things like
ruined.
that.
Yeah.
It's such a cliche thing to say now the social media is ruined, but it just really has. I have no social media.
No, and a lot of women would be upset over that.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys. Apparently, I don't understand that.
You'd prefer to text than talk, right?
Or call, or
I love that.
Are
See,
you
that's very
are you a
masculine
caller?
to me.
Yeah, I mean,
See, most men aren't anymore. It doesn't matter
that's
what
because
area.
they're busy texting 15 other girls at the same time, and the woman's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just say it's important that you acknowledge women do the same thing men do too, for sure. For sure.
yes.
Yeah. But I think that's something I think is very missed is the one-on-one talking to someone on the phone and just,
No, it's you definitely should be doing that versus the digital world and texting and everything else.
So, but a lot of women might not think you're interested in them if you're not returning their text or.
Yeah, we
Or
put
if
a
you-
lot of value on text, and I think it's one of the worst ways to communicate ever.
I
I
do
think
too.
texts are for,
You can't
hey,
feel-
I'll be home at 6. That's a text.
Yeah, or, hey, call
But
me.
trying to have
Yeah.
a long conversation, number one, they're misrepresented. I mean, it causes a lot of
How that
arguments.
person is saying that or what they're thinking.
No.
Or how the emotions they're feeling when they say that.
Well, like,
Professional emoji user, it'll tell you how they're feeling right there.
yeah, but you're
Frowny face
not.
and all that
There you
stuff.
go. Or the orange.
I could think of a couple of emojis I could use in a conversation with you.
A simple thing of how are you, and someone just replies, "Great." Literally, you'd be shocked at how many people get upset or hurt feelings because that's all you gave them was great.
And that's an opening.
Dot,
they're
dot.
giving you the opening for a conversation.
Yeah.
Right. But they get so offended by that. Whereas if you're on an actual phone call, it's
Well, everybody likes to hit the easy button now, and that's what a phone is.
it is
Yeah.
easy. button.
Cell phone is the easy
I
button.
don't think a lot of people these days know how to actually have a conversation, though, too.
Yeah.
There is a disturbance in social interactions out there from their high school days or earlier than that on. They seem to fail. And I've seen this with just applicants with my job and things like that. They don't know how to have an actual conversation. The structure of it, the eye contact, the things like that. They don't know how to do it.
And I think that's a whole nother episode is how our social media affects communication between men and women.
So I guess we'll have
And
to have them back.
I think we'll have to have this because I think that could be a whole nother topic of how
whole series.
it affects relationships.
We have a
100%.
question in the audience.
The live audience.
So yeah, guys, thank you so much for being on the show
Thanks for
today.
having
Yeah, absolutely.
We
pleasure
love
as
y'all.
usual.
And
You guys
yeah, I mean,
are
they've been on our
great
show
men,
before,
and
but
we
they are great
appreciate
men.
you.
They're manly men. Manly-
And great women.
Thank you.
Thank you. We've got one that's married to a beautiful wife.
Yes.
We've got one that's very single.
Very single. Call us.
See, that's the whole reason I got
Message
you up here,
us.
is to promote
All right, great.
D-
Tune in
D-
next week,
D-
everybody.
DM
We'll
me.
be talking about clown porn and the effects of it. We sure. It's a 2-part series starting next Saturday and until following that. What are its effects? What are the good things about it? Tune in next week.
This is the comedian, y'all.
Remember, stand-up comedy.
Yeah,
Yep.
stand-up
Oh,
comedy.
he's a drummer.
And
And
he's
a
a drummer.
drummer.
He's a man's man. Yeah.
Driving a Camaro.
Dude, Alex Van Halen, eat your heart out.
Yeah. All right. Well, guys, thanks so much.
Thanks
for
so
being on the show.
much. If you or anyone you know is struggling with mental health issues, please reach out to talk to someone you trust. Get connected to a mental health professional who can help you find ways to cope and ultimately feel better. If you are having suicidal or self-harm thoughts or thoughts of hurting another person, please go to the nearest ER, call 911, or contact the National Suicide Hotline at 988. Thank you for tuning in to Mental Perk. We hope our talk today highlighted real people working through real issues based on mental health. Our goal at Mental Perk is to make sure every one of you knows you're worthy. We're in this together.